my batteries with the fact that I've brought you misery.
Oh, okay.
We didn't mind.
But anyway, welcome to That Japanese Thing. This week we're going to be talking about another Kurosawa film, Hidden Fortress. With me today is Dylan and Yesh. I'm your host, Chris. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
Great
Hi.
on yourself.
We're good, and you?
I've had enough caffeine today, so pretty good.
Excellent.
Good. So yeah, in a few minutes we're going to talk about Hidden Fortress. Housekeeping wise, we are aware that a couple episodes ago there was a bit of a sound issue. Hopefully that's been fixed. Also, one of us is having problems with computer stuff, and maybe at some point in the future that'll also help the situation. But we're not sure entirely what caused it. And do let us know in the comments if you have noticed anything. But anyway, on to our topics. I just wanted to bring up a couple of things that have been renewed anime-wise. And I'm sure people paying more attention to this than me probably saw this earlier on Twitter or whatever. But we got a new Spy Family season, I think. We got ReZero, the third season announced. And we got Jobless Reincarnation. I'm not sure if it's a second or a third season, technically. Is it?
Jobless will be 3.
Will it be 3? Oh, because
As far as I'm aware, I could be wrong. It could have just been a season break.
yeah, I think there were like 2 lots of 12 episodes. But I don't know what they're calling it, second or third. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. Part 2 is what they're calling it. So I guess it's the second season?
Oh my god, are they trying to make it all one season? If it's called Part 2...
Well, it's Mushoku Tensei Roman numeral 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know.
We'll call
No,
it Season 2,
second
I guess.
season. Second
Season
season. Is at the
There we
end
go.
there. Yeah.
So it was just a split phase before.
Yeah. I don't know, the way they title things sometimes is strange in Japanese. So the thing will have like an aesthetic name for a thing, which may sort of include kind of fanciful characters. Like, do you remember Quintessential Quintuplets had
Yeah.
f-stops, like musical notation?
Inside
Symbols
the
instead
title,
of
yeah.
like season 1 or 2. So maybe it's just a choice, just for it to look good that way on the poster. But yeah, next week we'll do the upcoming season. Some things have started already, and a couple of weeks after that we'll do our usual breakdown in an exhaustive list of what we think is worth watching or what isn't. And yeah. Right into our topic of the week. What did you guys think of it? I made everyone watch this, so I'm going to pick on you two to describe what I put you through. I don't think this one was as bad as some of the other ones we watched. But
As bad or worse?
I mean,
So for me, The Hidden Fortress is kind of the middle of the Kurosawa films in a way. What was the one we watched previous to this?
Seven
Sorry,
Samurai.
The one I absolutely detested. Yes, Seven Samurai.
Yeah.
So unlike Seven Samurai, we didn't have moments where the camera was looking at an empty scene with no actors, then a guy picks his nose, then a third guy walks across the screen, and then story begins to happen about 2 minutes 30 into the scene.
It also wasn't 3 hours long.
It also wasn't 3 hours long. So at least in this one, it looks like they tightened up the editing and the cutting process a great deal. Every scene had story progress, every scene had acting, and every scene had a reason to contribute to things. In that regard, I wasn't yawning and like literally crying on the inside during many of the moments. On the other side of the coin, it did feel like 3 or 4 of the characters involved with it, including many of the main cast, had no reason to exist, and I don't know why. I don't know why they were there.
I need like a...
So this one was like that that's just barely above a 5 out of 10, that where I don't feel like I wasted my time, but I would never try to watch this again.
I need like an interjection button on the avatar. Something I can
Yes,
just like
indeed.
make it like a
Object!
objection.
Sorry,
Higiari.
Chris,
But
if I didn't hear you.
do you think movies have gotten better in their editing, or do you think it's just that in the old days film was expensive, so they were going to put in all of the boring stuff, so to speak?
I do think that there's definitely a tightness to this one that suggests that they didn't care. And also, if film was so tight, they wouldn't have begun filming 2 minutes before the actors walked onto the thing.
Right.
Because they're wasting real time just by filming empty spaces. Sorry, Chris, Dylan.
No. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. I just want to interject here and say,
Okay.
firstly, right?
1 point. Yes.
There was no Marvel back in that day. There was no John Wick back in that day.
Yeah.
As a society, we have gotten very impatient for editing. Okay, whether that's good or a bad thing, it's a separate issue. But the fact of the matter is, for its time, I don't think it's that slow paced in terms of the pacing. Everything we're heading towards currently as media progresses is shorter format, faster, more snippy, more attention grabbing, and then it must be gone.
I'm not sure that's entirely true. Right?
TikTok
just
is
given the dearth
current
of long
meta.
form TV we're getting at the moment, and it seems a reverse trend is really going on at the moment.
I think you're looking at like one specific media paradigm. I'm talking about things in general.
So Dylan, allow me to just say something as well. My favorite anime show that's not like my top 3, but like, one of my top 10 is a show called Inukai is Lazy Again Today or something like that.
Okay.
And it's literally about like a slice of life lazy guy going through high school life, sleeping and enjoying views.
I mean, yeah, and there's a lot of those sort of shows, right?
And there's tons of them. The Eurocamps and the fishing thing. I'm not saying that I cannot watch a show or a scene where nothing happens for a little bit. But in Seven Samurai, we had a 3-hour movie that could have been cut into a 45-minute TV episode.
Did I say that you couldn't? I didn't. I said, guys.
We're not actually.
You're judging like this. The 50s and 60s were a different era in terms of movie making. I think you could probably watch some of the classics nowadays and say the same thing. I mean, this is, for example, Seven Samurai is a classic.
You could. I mean, people have said this about Star Wars, right? The original.
There we go.
That it's very slow.
So that's point number 1, right? I would just like to also state as point number 2, in Seven Samurai, it was very clear that they chose a lot of different character exposés to do, and so they had a lot more to cover. Now, you can, if you want to argue that was a mistake, 100%, that's fine. But they gave every different character from the samurai to the peasants their due. In this, we've got like a total of five main focuses, and then like some ancillary characters around them, but not like heavy. They come and go. But 5 main ones, and for the majority of the first half of the film, at least, there's only 3. So I don't think that they needed the extra time to cover everyone else either. And then the last thing is, it's interesting to see how the opinion has changed, because right after watching this film, we were all happy to agree that this was the worst Korosawa film that we've watched.
Whoa, that's not true in any way.
That is true. That is
not
true.
At all.
Chris, back me up here.
I mean,
at the end,
we did
this was
sort
better
of
than Seven Samurai.
No,
yeah, we didn't entirely consider, like, I suppose, all of them. We just agreed that this wasn't exactly like, up there with the best ones we watched.
No. My question at the time is, okay, but this is worse than Seven Samurai, and you said, yep. And
Nope,
Chris said,
nope,
"Yep."
nope,
and
nope,
then
nope,
Chris
nope,
said,
nope.
"This will be the shortest episode ever." So it's interesting how after
It is.
Doesn't-
It is
what's
true.
a
We
bit-
said something like that, but I can't remember exactly what it is.
I
So
said this
Exactly.
isn't the
confirm.
worst. I said this
well, then you
isn't
misinterpreted my question at the time.
But you see, Dylan. I mean, I don't really
Yes.
think Seven Samurai is worse than this, or is better than this, or whatever.
Mm.
It's just that there's so many things connected to the Seven Samurai that it kind of gets elevated in a kind of way that is not attached to the quality of the film, so to speak.
Yeah, I
Like
understand. what you're
one of
saying.
my favorite episodes of Star Trek is based on Seven Samurai, the Magnificent Ferengi, which is like a comedy parallel to that. And I don't know, this is supposed to be related to Star Wars, right? The Hidden Fortress. People sort of say that the two horrible characters that we're introduced to in this movie, if we can describe it briefly, are what the droids in Star Wars are based on, R2-D2 and C-3PO. I mean,
Was that ever confirmed?
it's just what people say. I don't know if Lucas
They don't
himself
seem
said
anything
said
other
that.
than there being a tall one and a short one.
Yeah.
It doesn't
but,
seem like they've got
Lucas
any
himself
other
doesn't really like
resemblance.
saying things in interviews, so it's hard to know for sure.
Okay,
Also, in
that's
Star
a
Wars,
fast
those
stretch
two
for me.
characters actually were useful and did things.
and
Whereas
weren't
literally
despicable.
in this movie, those two characters are antagonists.
Right.
Yes.
But I mean, anyway, so it's very it's a loose kind of point, and people say there's a variety of samurai kind of films and Western films that Lucas based Star Wars off, and this was one of them. And he's made reference to those sort of things in the past, but it's not to say this is exactly where it comes from. But Kurosawa's sort of style in this, you can kind of see elements emerging in theater and like in film, which would later become the norm, I guess, today. And what is the plot of this, if you can describe, Yash?
So the primary plot of this is that a nation is falling, or a family which rules a nation is falling. And in the process of falling, their gold has been hidden away somewhere. And at the very beginning, we find some people who had been hiding amongst bodies while, I'm guessing, looting the battlefields, being captured to be forced to work in some mines to go and dig up that gold. After having escaped from that situation, they basically attempt to flee to a nearby different faction area that is neutral in the conflict in hopes of escaping their forced labor.
Yeah.
During this, they find a hidden fortress, the titular hidden fortress, in fact, where a laughing man basically tells them that he knows where the gold is, and he needs their backs to help him carry the gold. And if they can just work with him, that they will get a split of the gold with him. Since he's supplying the gold and they are supplying the labor, if they can just work together, we can make this work. They then go about betraying him twice before eventually discovering that he actually has a girl that he is protecting and hasn't shown them before, and that his plan is to get her across with the gold, and then it's later revealed that she is actually the current heir of that fallen family.
Okay,
The gold is from that family,
we're good.
and this
We're good.
entire scheme.
Let's work through that. So, our
Sure,
main character,
okay.
the guy on the poster behind our head, is the same guy from the Yojimbo movie, and what's the other one called? Sanjiro.
Banjuro, yes.
This seems to kind of stick to the kind of like trope of him walking into a movie and kind of assuming control of a situation. But he's not actually the same character, right?
No, he's not like a criminal or like a great warrior that's just trying to take advantage of the situation in this.
Yeah.
He's actually like a loyal servant type character in this.
And yeah, in this one, he doesn't have like a made-up name or anything. He just I'm not entirely sure what he tries to sell himself as.
Well, as a grifter initially, he suggests
Right.
that he found the gold and is just trying to escape.
But very quickly he tells the two that he is a general, right? And they don't believe him at first, obviously. But he tries to take control of the situation, and how do they find the gold? They find the gold by burning a piece of wood, right?
So, yeah, during their attempt to escape from the mines and the forced labor, they are walking across a field when they burn some wood that they had gathered, and inside one of the pieces of wood was some gold. So then they go searching for some more wood, and while searching for more wood, screaming, "There's gold in here, there's gold in here," they encounter him, the general.
So that's essentially like the, I don't know, is that the inciting moment of the story? How to say? They discover that there is hidden gold, and they try to find out where it's coming from. They meet this mysterious general guy who kind of enslaves them, if we're honest. Which would seem bad, but these two people are some of the lowest forms of life that the Earth has ever produced. So it's not really a travesty what happens to them, I guess. And then we're introduced to the most underwhelming fortress that has ever been constructed. It's just literally one hut in a little valley, right?
It's a hut and a cave system, though, because the hidden part of it is that there is a set of caves that houses the true treasure.
And the true treasure?
Is the princess, or the current heiress of the family.
Princess Yuki, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Princess Yuki is defined in what particular way? I would say physically she's very well defined by those very distinctive eyebrows we have going on there.
Strunk eyebrows. Strunk.
But also she's been raised kind of as a boy, if I remember correctly. And
Yeah.
Her father raised her in a more masculine manner, yeah. So we see her initially wearing shorts, which is an unusual thing for women in the era.
I wonder if there is something to what you guys have been saying about Korosawa and his like leg fetish.
Leg and butt.
Leg
He
and
has
butt.
a leg and butt fetish.
I haven't been saying anything. That's the two of you.
That's
Ooh,
pretty much
Dylan.
me, I will say.
That's the two of you whenever we sit down and watch a movie.
Right.
You're like, here we go.
I will say the butt count in this movie is very nearly zero.
That's true. I mean, that was really a Seven Samurai, if we're honest. That was the butt movie. This is the
Sanjuro had
sleeveless
two
pants
characters.
movie.
This is the sleeveless pants movie.
Guys,
Fair.
I hate to tell you, but it is also kind of a trope, even in manga, with the type of loincloth that was used back in the day to show a lot of Japanese ass.
No, I
It's
agree.
not just Kurosawa films.
I'm not suggesting that it's a Kurosawa only thing. Just that the man is a fellow purveyor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dylan, I mean, usually like when someone's wearing a loincloth, it's because they're going into like a bathhouse or something. This is just how these people live in Kurosawa films.
I
also-
have read a lot of manga where that is, and it's not ecchi manga, guys. It is samurai film manga where that is like honestly a thing. It's like it's supposed to show that there's like no hang-ups over that kind of thing,
Right. Okay.
or at least that's one of the things that it does coincidentally show if it's not intentional. Now, it's just a thing.
So what are these? Okay, so two bedraggled peasants is the way they're described. Tahe and Matashichi.
You know, to get your names on track when you go to Japan, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. They're from.
They don't really matter anyway because your audience is designed to hate them.
Ahei and Matashichi.
Are they
It's
from
just like,
Yamana
there's a
or
tall one and
they're
a short
from Akizuki? I can't remember.
They're from their home is where they're not they're not from what was it, Akazuchi or whatever. They're not from,
Akazuki is the castle. That's the hidden
Yeah.
fortress.
yeah, but that whole area was where that war happened,
Right.
So that's not
The
their
Lucy faction.
homeland. That's why they're all on the mission to kind of cross at the same area, because they're beyond the neighboring lands borders as well.
Right. I mean, so they tried to be soldiers. They ended up realizing they're really just sort of cowardly kind of opportunists, and they weren't into the whole being enslaved thing after the battle went poorly for them, right? So they decided they were going to desert, and that's how we meet them. That's the first thing one of the guys says, like, oh my god, you smell so bad, you smell so terrible, I've never smelled something as bad as you. It says he turns to one of them. So that's how we were introduced to these lovely people, as foul-smelling deserters who were
Who
digging
are attacking
graves.
each other because they're having a bad time.
Right. And did they have a character arc?
No.
No.
At the end of the... So they're always arguing with each other about the gold, and they're trying to kind of steal the gold from each other. And
Yeah, I mean, they embody human greed to a fault. In other words, like actively, that flaw undermines any progress or little gains they could have had. Their greed will always just consume them in the end.
Oh, one thing, was it Yesha or was it you, Dylan, that said Akira, what is this guy's name again? Korosawa. There we go. His name is Akira Korosawa.
Yes, it is.
It's late. We're recording this a bit later than normal.
It's late, and whilst there's been enough caffeine to function, there hasn't been enough caffeine to go into ultra mode.
It's true. Yeah, but he doesn't seem to like peasants. That's the kind of impression one gets when watching his movies.
I disagree. I don't think he has a problem with peasants. I think he's portrayed some peasants in very positive lights, even in this film, and I will make references to that now. I think what he does is he shows that desperation, maybe not so much in Hidden Fortress, but in general, I'm talking like Go to Seven Samurai, desperation can bring out both the best traits in people as well as the worst. And the worst are really there in spades. And so good people, or who you would like to think is good people, do horrendous things in the most desperate of situations, which is it's not that far-fetched. It's not like, I mean, to me that's water is wet kind of territory. Now in this case specifically, these guys aren't, they're desperate in their situation, in that, you know, they don't have anywhere easy to go. They need to try and cross a few borders safely to get home, because they can't directly cross the border home, as they'll get captured and probably killed. So they're in a little bit of a desperate situation. But despite that, they don't focus on the critically important elements. It's not like they're doing bad things to achieve that end. What happens is that their greed constantly undermines their well-being. So instead of like making a dash for the border, they'll sit and try and gather as much gold as they could carry, to the extent that they actually can't carry it. And there is a scene of exactly that, and they constantly get into trouble because they're constantly trying to enrich themselves. There are other peasants, for example, although I suppose you could argue she's not really a peasant, but the lady that was in the
like the
entertainment bar, I can't remember what they're called.
more like a kind of like a
brothel.
Yeah, like an indentured servant sort of thing.
Yeah, but she's shown in a very positive light. She doesn't actually betray them in the end, despite the fact that we're like,
they do save her from like a life of like, you know, perpetual prostitution.
Yeah, but that constantly prompts us in subtle ways to try and suspect that she's going to give up everyone. And in the meantime, she actually fights people off to save Yuki. Well, she actually fights off specifically those two, what was it? Bad-smelling bastards.
That's true.
The primary antagonist of the movie.
Yeah,
So-
the two peasants are also like very rapey.
So just in summary, I don't think he's got a bad view of peasants. I think he just tries to take a more three-dimensional approach to his characters. I would fight for that.
Okay.
Except in this.
I wouldn't fight you,
These
though.
guys
Just
are not
putting it out
three-dimensional.
there.
The tall one and the short one are very two-dimensional. They are greedy assholes that should get their comeuppance and don't, and it's very disappointing.
That is, I think, my primary issue with this movie. Actually, like everything else is okay. I can live with it, and it's. I would honestly call this a near 7 out of 10 movie, but for those two.
I mean, certainly the eyebrows in this movie are approaching 7 or 8 out of 10.
It's true.
I mean, if you look at the poster,
So, sorry guys, I do want to ask, right? For you to, does this feel like the first movie where it genuinely feels like somebody slept with someone to make something happen? Is it just me, or does she never act in a way that suggests that she knows how to act? And then when she talks, you find out she never should?
we were making jokes about how Kurosawa just cast the prettiest person that showed up for the.
And her voice is the most grating and horrific thing in the universe. And then when she's not trying to sound like that, it's really monotone.
It's sort of. I mean, it sounds like she was just told to try and make her voice sound like a man's. But she wasn't given any particular direction in which,
Please note,
where she should
this
go.
is never brought up in the movie. No one told us this. We had to come up with a reason. We had to brain scheme a reason for why something so horrific was allowed to speak.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but
I would.
I mean, there's a point where she's reciting like a Zen poem, right? And oh my gosh, just grates in the ears.
I literally stood up and walked away from the screen for a bit while she was talking.
That's true, you did. Yeah.
So
I
yes.
didn't otherwise hate her performance or anything like that. I think it was
didn't feel like she
it was
added
super
anything.
interesting to watch because of all these obvious flaws that no one seemed to care about in the filming of this movie.
Also in the bits where her life's in danger, obviously they wanted to write this upright, brave princess type character.
Yeah.
But she always seemed to charge headfirst into a tree. So it always felt like if the general wasn't stopping her, she would just immediately die, instantly.
And
so
the
there
weird
was
thing
never
is
a
that
time.
I mean, at this time they would have also, generally speaking, put sound in after the fact, right? I mean, they would have recorded sound and speech during the time, but then they would have, dubbed it over to get a better quality in the studio.
Especially with some of the very wide open scenes, when they're walking down roads and stuff, there was no way to record sound without the crunch of stuff just destroying all sound. So yeah, they had to ADR in this movie.
So I mean, this is very much a choice that they went with for some particular reason.
There was a lot of sex somewhere for this to happen.
I often find that the more I get to know like Japanese culture, eventually something like this will make sense.
The most disappointing thing
But
is
hasn't yet.
Sorry, the reason why I brought this up now, actually, is because you brought up the tavern girl that they rescued.
Right.
She acted better than the princess. She had that little bit of fear and super anger on her face when she was holding the rock above her head.
Yeah.
She outacted the princess in a scene where the princess was the primary focus.
Yes, but Kurosawa didn't care about how she looked, right? she was just there to carry things in the film.
I mean, it's to a point where they made her mute for half of the movie, just so that we wouldn't have to listen to her talk. And I consider that the height of writing.
Maybe that is why they did that.
Yes, no, that literally is. They made her mute so that we wouldn't know that she was a failure right at the get-go.
She must have been someone's daughter, right? Some studio exec at Toho was like, "Hey, my niece wants to act. Can't you give her a role, Akira?"
Now, let's also be clear. The movie tries to set her up in a very bad way as well. I feel like we're supposed to feel like the entirety of the future of this nation rests on her. But the first scene where she talks, really, is a scene where she's berating the general because his sister killed herself to save her.
All right.
Do you remember that?
Yes.
She's screaming at him that he's okay with his sister sacrificing herself to save her liege, her. How can he be that way? What an evil man he must be. While he's trying not to cry in front of her.
I didn't really pay attention to much of the plot points, to be honest.
I mean,
it didn't really make
happen.
sense that they fled to another country, or a little country as they said in the subtitles, but
It's just another province type thing.
province,
yeah.
whatever. and then suddenly they were allowed to be like princess and general in that country for some reason. You know what I mean?
Because the military forces that were invading them would have arrested them if they were princessy, like on the road and kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But that military force would have to invade this side. to
No,
get
I
her.
understand. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know why
But-
the other side wants them. Besides
There
them
is-
having like quite a lot of gold, I guess.
There is a lot of look. This is the thing. For me, this is my least favorite so far of the films, and that's because the writing is not up to scratch. And it's like the character explorations are not good enough to carry the bad writing. So they handwave a lot of stuff. They handwave the situations, like for example, like them not going directly over the patrolled borders, but going into a neighboring neutral province to get back into the province that they aim to get into is viewed as some ultra
Super
smart.
genius scheme.
Yes, go around the problem is somehow genius level tactics. It's
And it's remarked on by like several people, the
elders of
general,
the-
the
of the
elderly
tribe, yeah.
tactician, everyone else. Oh, sometimes
is-
even peasants have great ideas. Something they say, right?
maybe there's like your Star Warsy influences. Like, you know, there's a lot of like this is kind of like the equivalent of space magic hand waving but there's no magic in this world for that to kind of make sense. There's just this sort of, because we say it's this way, you must accept it, you know.
Yeah.
This guy is the best spear fighter. The fact that neither of these actors can fight with spears has nothing to do with anything.
Best
Oh, Dylan,
spear fighter. And if you look at the poster, he's holding a sword.
He's holding a
Yes.
sword. I was willing to hand wave the best spear fighter one. You know, that's one of those things where like movie magic is allowed to magic a bit. Do you remember the two that I got super offended about were, firstly, how did they find the hidden fortress magically once our cast left? There was no talking about how that happened in any way, shape, or form. As soon as our MCs leave, the fortress is burnt down. All of a sudden, magically, it is found and
Oh,
destroyed.
they said
instantly.
something about that. Like, I can't remember. Like, they found someone who confessed, and then they went there.
So I want to point out, earlier in the same movie, one of the peasants ran down and tried to rat out the general
Right.
and the princess. But because of their decoy op, no one believed.
But
this
didn't they say
peasant.
something like the decoy had confessed to where the thing was before she died, or something like that? I can't. It doesn't really matter though.
It's just they decided that that place can burn now, I guess.
That's very
And then
much. We're done with this plot point. It can no longer exist.
It can vanish now. And then the second one I had a super big problem with was like 2 minutes after our crew bursts through a security waypoint by telling the guards that inside sticks there is gold. The crew, with all of their sticks that they just admitted all has gold, is forced out because of some ham acting, which
I don't know if he
get
actually
what's the
said
reason.
the stick thing, right? I think he just
He did.
said he found.
He walked up to him, broke a stick, and showed him that there's gold inside the stick. That is a scene in this movie. And then he said the sticks up there and points back the way they came from
I mean,
have gold.
okay, but I mean,
And
I don't know if
this
it was
man
exactly
loaded-
that way. I would have to rewatch
Loaded
this
down
scene
with sticks.
to
I
comment on it.
promise you, I guarantee you, both Dylan and I were like jaw on the floor because he said inside sticks are gold. And this man is literally on his back carrying a pile of sticks.
See, I thought
And the
he
guards.
just said, while gathering firewood, I found this gold, and then he
Yeah,
pulled
but he
out some
broke a
gold
stick
from
in
his
front of the
pocket.
guard.
I don't think he did that.
There was a time, like there were several instances where kind of they had these interactions with guards. In one of them,
Yeah.
it was only in one of them later on, was there like a stick that was broken in front of them.
I mean, that was one of the dumber things our main character
No,
did in the movie,
But
right?
this leads into the next dumbest thing, the thing that actually broke me, that like
Sure.
made me leave the movie, is a guy on a horse rides down like 2 minutes after they leave and
Yeah.
goes, the princess is alive. We know that this is true. We know exactly who she's traveling with. We know exactly the makeup of the people she's traveling with, and we know the number of horses they have.
Yeah, right?
And it's like, how? Who? What?
No,
What do you
yes,
mean?
they
What?
killed the people at the fortress, so that's why they know that.
So that suggests that the people at the fortress gave up that information.
Yeah,
like-
that is what they said in the movie, which is fine.
It's madness. It's madness. A lot of it just didn't make sense. No, Chris, this scene happens before the fortress burns.
I don't think so. I think that
It's
the guy.
the first security
That's where
checkpoint.
we see them go over the bridge. Then they take the gold. He makes a big scene, and they get kicked out the town. That happens directly after that.
Yes, it does happen directly after that.
Yeah, and that's after they've dealt with the people at the fortress.
Hmm.
But that's not
There's
the dumbest thing, right? That's the dumbest thing the main character does, I think, is make their presence felt in that weird
Very
way.
felt.
I mean, maybe he could have just bribed someone to let them in or something like that, right? He had lots of gold. But that makes them known, and that starts the whole spear fighting arc of the thing. We introduced like the general kind of other guy who later joins them for no particular reason, other than the fact that he suddenly respects them after losing to them a couple of times.
No, it makes no sense. They're just like hand waving it along.
But I mean, the two dumb, greedy guys kind of push the plot forward most of the time, such as it is. They never get it in their head straight that they would still be quite well off if they just got through the whole situation together, right? And then split the gold or whatever. So they keep deciding to try and run away or
Burn the
do
people
something
in.
despicable, and that always ends up getting them in a worse situation. So they go to a firewood festival with their gold, with their wood coated gold, and everyone wants them to burn it there for understandable reasons. And so then they have to pick through the ashes the next day and try to find the gold, which somehow they do. I still maintain I don't think that would really work. I think the gold would be so melted that you wouldn't find much more than like the odd lump. After
So
thing.
what I would say is that whilst it's conceivable that you would recover some of the gold, the fact that they basically have stated that they recovered all
the
what was it,
gold,
like
right? Yeah,
200 pieces or some. Well, no, it was 200.
yeah, 200 bars.
Yeah, there was some like weight thing that we calculated that was insane.
Yeah, it worked out to be something like $200,000 in modern money of gold or something that they had, which
But yeah,
doesn't seem like like worth dying over. But I guess if you're a peasant, it's a lot of money.
$200,000 in that time era, which via inflation would be
No, this was I worked it out to 1990s kind of inflation. So I guess it's more like 300,000 now or whatever. But yeah. I mean, it's a lot of money. Still, obviously.
maybe not enough to establish a whole ass clan though.
No. Certainly not.
But anyway.
And it sort of just progresses there in like a series of blunders. The girl they save from indentured servitude takes a bullet for the princess.
But somehow still survives.
And somehow they escape an entire army of musketeers.
It's very Deus Ex Machina. Although, like in the defense of this movie, not that I want to, a lot of the films from this period are like that. Like, people are very good with muskets when the plot calls for it, and they are like completely stormtrooper levels of useless when your heroes need to make a getaway that looks like a hair-raising event, because then they must like have almost the Quentin Tarantino thing of like being shot all around them but them and still survive.
It's fine. I mean, it probably would have been like a thing you go to as your like, bi-monthly kind of movie thing. And it's probably fine to take someone on a date to watch this movie, I guess. It wasn't one of his greatest movies.
In fact, actually, this is a great date movie because the movie is so. It's the opposite of compelling, right? Like it's actively boring, that your date will want to be making out with you.
Right.
So it's a perfect date movie. I agree. For anything else, maybe less so.
Maybe that's what he was going for.
Maybe.
Maybe that's why it didn't really matter who you choose as the lead actress, because no one was going to watch the movie. It's just something to put on the background in the movie theater.
I mean, I'm sure someone's going to feel very offended.
Have you
with
been
that
to a
outfit.
movie theater in Japan,
It's not
Dylan?
well written, guys. Sorry, have we
you
ever been
seen
to?
a movie in Japan ever?
Yes, I have.
It's a very
saw it as a
silent,
kid.
kind of stoic affair in Japanese movie theaters. So I wonder if it was different at the time period.
Yeah. Look, we went. I think Kevin and I went during the week, so there wasn't that many people there. I might be wrong.
I think I watched one of the
And we watched
Captain
the
America
Marvel.
movies in a
Yeah,
Japanese.
yeah. We also watched a Marvel movie when it was.
Yeah.
When I was there.
And it's just completely silent. And I mean, the whole theater was like packed full of people.
Mm.
So I'm not sure. Maybe the 60s was different.
Well, we know that the 60s was different because the rates of population increase were different. So maybe that was just it. There were enough bad movies for people to start having children.
that's people need to start making these kind of movies again, and that'll get the Japanese population back on a growth trajectory.
I think it's a fan movie.
Oh dear.
I'm gonna catch so much hate in the comments for that. Just look at the writing, guys. That's all I'm gonna say. Be honest about the writing of this movie. That's all.
I mean, it may be the worst one we've seen so far, but I still like it because we have the Sanjiro actor as the lead,
Toshiro Mifune,
and he's
like
super charismatic.
He's almost like there's a Tim Burton Johnny Depp dynamic between Kurosawa and Mifune.
Yeah.
If you look at the movies that Mifune has been in, like, or rather, if you look at all the movies Akira Kurosawa has made, not all of them necessarily, but certainly
he's got
as
16.
you're going through the lines.
Yeah, they've made 16 movies together, so
yeah,
they obviously had.
So they obviously worked very well together, and they liked each other. You know, I suppose you could also maybe make the argument that there weren't as many actors at the time, but I think they had a good working relationship that led to like some good things.
For sure.
You know, but yeah.
I mean, he sort of makes anything that is in this movie, you know, worth watching, I guess.
Absolutely. Even the shitty fight scene where they don't know how to fight is fun to watch, at least.
I don't know. I didn't feel that much for it. I felt like a lot of the action scenes in, for example, like Seven Samurai were a lot better. Certainly Sanjiro and Yojimbo, but that movie was made for that. Those movies were made for that specifically. I'm struggling to find something good to say, or at least something that I liked about this film. I didn't much care for the acting. Didn't much care for the action. Didn't care for the story. Didn't care for the character exploration. And even as a set piece or a period piece, like, you're not really sure when or where this is set. This is very much like almost like a fantasy story.
Although I have felt like that is true of Kurosawa in general.
Yeah, sure. But somehow a little bit more like you can resolve a bit better than this one. This one for me is by far the sort of most fantastical in terms of, you know, could this have been a real place back then? And we even commented on some of the places like not really sounding.
Yeah, but I mean, it's sort of a fictional account of Japanese history, and the Japanese really like to kind of exaggerate that particular point in history to where it's sort of become a mythical kind of period.
Well, sure, I get
which
that.
I think we've all, which I always find strange is that, I mean, it's such a recent period in history as well, that it's just so strange that has happened to it. I mean, it's as if you can't really imagine people doing the same thing to like the Shakespearean period, you know, in England, in this kind of fanciful way. But yeah, that I'm willing to excuse. It's just part of like the mythology of like the samurai period.
Yeah, all I'm saying is that there's nothing that I can find that I like about it.
Right.
I don't know if it like is are there points that you really liked, guys?
I personally feel that there's a couple of things that were pretty okay in my opinion.
Okay, liked as in you would actively seek.
I mean, I actually liked. The
Okay,
editing
cool.
in particular was great in my opinion. The ADR on the camera work was very nice. Lighting was for the first time quite competent. I really got very angry in Seven Samurai during the night scenes, but in this one, night or day, everything was understandable, competent. Pacing felt like acceptable rather than torturous. Yeah, I liked large amounts of some of these things.
I thought quite a
I
bit
just
of the
hated all of the writing.
the scenery was also quite cleverly used.
The number of extras they had in the castle attack scenes and stuff. The castles themselves.
the opening sequence. Yeah.
Quite nice, quite impressive, honestly.
The sets that they used and the quality of the extras and background characters really kind of sold the period more so than the other movies we watched, including Seven Samurai. One of the things in that movie that takes you out of it is just it's a little bit. It feels like they had limited choices with costuming and such things.
Yeah, that's fair.
This felt like, I don't know, they'd either got their sets right by this point and they had access to all that stuff, or they maybe
were
was
willing
a
to spend a
higher
bit
budget. But I'm not entirely sure which of those is true.
But also, sound mixing was much better. Hearing voices over stuff in combat and fighting was much easier. Once again, like I'm saying, lighting was good because even in the bar scene and stuff, I don't know if you guys saw, but in the background, there was stuff happening that looked like semi-interesting that we could actually see.
It's true.
And like, I know I'm not supposed to care about stuff that's not happening with the main characters, but if a scene is so dark I can't see anything except the main characters, it bugs me.
No, it's perfectly legitimate. I think a lot of my enjoyment from film and stuff comes from watching stuff that happens in the background.
Stuff in the background and
Yeah.
stuff. And while I do feel a little bit of regret that there was a lot more modern style clothing in this one, because even
The short shorts.
the short shorts and stuff
Yeah.
were a little bit more
She's like
prevalent
wearing a
in this.
blouse in some scenes. It's kind of strange.
There were some faux pas, not like faux pas, sorry. There were some choices made where corners were obviously cut. But like when they had a big thing to show, they showed it very well, in my opinion. It's just the writing was super bad in this one.
Yeah. Do we know if Korosawa wrote all of his movies, or if he was just like assigned scripts from Toho? Probably a bit of both, I would imagine.
He's mostly known as a great director, which suggests he has directed other people's movies as well.
Yeah, it's difficult to know because
He has a credit on the screenplay, but he's one of 6.
Okay.
One of 4, sorry, one of 4.
Yeah, I think that makes sense what you're saying then, right? The direction was pretty decent.
Direction, camera work, sound.
The writing definitely just wasn't.
Fell
in that
through a
case.
floor and got lost somewhere, yeah.
Mm.
And also, the main actress pissed me off a lot.
But I mean, other than that, like I wouldn't watch it again. Probably never will watch it again. It's again, it's maybe just one of those things
Yeah.
I'm glad to
Like
have
I was
watched.
saying, this is a 5 out of 10. I'm glad I watched it once, but I would never go through it again.
Yeah.
So I would then suggest at some stage that we do Redbeard, and the reason why is so we've covered Seven Samurai, which is 1954, right?
Right.
We've covered Hidden Fortress, that's 58. We've then looked at, and granted that these are very different movies, Yojimbo and Sanjuro, that's 61 and 62. Redbeard is 65. It's also a very famous work. And I feel like then we'll have an idea as to the progression of at least these period pieces from Kurosawa from like the mid 50s up to the mid 60s. And we can see sort of if there is a progression, with the understanding that maybe they're highlighting completely different things. Like Sanjuro and Yojimbo are different movies to Hidden Fortress and Seven Spies,
absolutely.
right? They're doing different things. They're looking at different things. But yeah, so that would be something that I would suggest. So at least we can understand, that decade.
I agree.
Growth. Yeah.
We'll go through that. I found one interesting thing, and this is a quote from George Lucas. Shall I read it?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that really intrigued me, by the way, was the fact that the story was told from the two lowest characters. I decided that would be a nice way to tell a Star Wars story. That was the strongest influence. The fact that there was a princess trying to get through enemy lines was more of a coincidence than anything else. In my film, the princess is more of a standard fight kind of princess in the beginning. In one of the first drafts, I did have a little bit more of her and a Jedi and an older Jedi trying to escape, but then it evolved into a story of Luke. So I guess like the two worst characters, perhaps in Kurosawa's film history, maybe are what made Star Wars.
That's probably the only good thing that I could say about the film for me.
I mean, as you guys have said, the Seven Samurai has inspired some interesting and nice things, where I consider it the worst thing I've watched recently, and quite possibly a full of torture.
Right. You haven't been watching Picard then, eh?
I haven't been watching the new episodes of Picard, but ever since we learned that the jackass that we hate is not writing it, and someone new is doing it, I actually think there's a chance that it might be good, said the man after watching season 2 of Picard.
Me and you will have to get together and see how it goes. But okay, folks, that'll do it for us this week. Thank you for watching our podcast. And yeah, that's all for us. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.